Good morning everybody. So I'm now live with you until 11 o'clock and I'm here to speak about basically all things breastfeeding and brain development. So we're speaking about how we can support and nurture our babies to grow and develop, mostly over those first 1,000 days from kind of pregnancy through to the age of about 2. Hi Kathy, thank you for joining me. So before we begin, I just want to mention that I'm part of the health visiting team for kids. I work as a lactation consultant in the infant feeding team, and we also have specialists in Medway as well. So across Kent and Medway, we're here to support you with any breastfeeding challenges you're having, especially at this strange time when we haven't got support in the same way we usually would have when we've just had a baby. So if you are in need of some extra support, please just get in contact with us. You can find support resources on our website beside you, and you can always message us here as well, and we will direct you to the most appropriate source of support for you. As well as our support, there's also different community resources as well which you can find on our website. So today's topic is focusing on brain development, and please feel free, if you've got questions about your baby's brain development, to post along as I'm chatting away, and we'll do our best to answer your questions as we go along. So when it comes to your baby's growth, your baby's brain grows the quickest in those first 1,000 days. So during pregnancy, if we imagine your baby's brain like a little shrub, your baby's brain is growing all the time and creating lots of new brain cells ready to develop connections with the outside world. And 2 hormones really heavily influence how well our baby's brain is able to grow and develop, and that is oxytocin and cortisol. So oxytocin is that love hormone that we get when we connect with somebody we really like, whether that's when we form a new friendship or we meet a new partner. It's the hormone that gets the baby in that it's the hormone that's produced when we're in love and when we make love. It's the hormone that gets the baby out by encouraging contractions and helping us to push our baby out, and it's the hormone that then gets our baby fed by encouraging milk to let down and flow into our baby. So it's a really important hormone throughout our lives, but especially in terms of brain development, it's the hormone that encourages flourishing of those connections and them becoming stronger. So it's a really important hormone to have. And then cortisol is released when we're stressed, and that has a pruning effect. So instead of encouraging strong new connections, it encourages these connections to be pruned back. So we really want to keep on having... Morning Michelle, lovely to see you here. We really want to have lots of oxytocin and lower levels of cortisol. So in pregnancy, we can stimulate lots of oxytocin by doing things that make us feel good, by making sure that we're taking some time out to nurture ourselves, but also by having time out, especially when we're really busy or we are under some pressure, to just take a few minutes every day to tune in with our babies. It might be an opportunity to check in with how our baby's been moving, but also a chance to stroke our bump, have a chat with baby. If you're listening to music that makes you feel good during pregnancy, not only are you increasing your own oxytocin, which is then passing through to your baby, but you're giving your baby something that might help to comfort them later on after birth, because your baby's listening to lots of lovely sounds which are going to be in the outside world as well. So doing things like playing music, reading your baby, and just indulging in things that make you feel good helps to develop your baby's brain when they're inside you. when we think about transitioning our babies from womb to world and how we can support their development once they're born, it helps us to think about how our babies live when they're inside us and then how they're experiencing the world when they're first born. So when babies are in us, they are always warm. It's a relatively constant temperature. They're always full because they're gulping away at their amniotic fluid, so they never have that sensation of having an empty tummy. So they're the biggest hug, and the bigger they get, the tighter the hug around them. So they never have that sensation of being, and they're always quite tightly contained. And of course, they're on the move a lot. When they're on the move, they are being rocked and soothed, and lots of us recognize when we're pregnant that our baby is perhaps a bit more active when we're resting at night time compared to when we're on the move in the day, when they're soothed by our own motions. So if we think about this compared to what babies experience when they're born, and they come from a really dark, warm, cosy place into a place that's loud and noisy and bright and cold. So they go from this warm inside their mummy to cold on the outside, and lots of these things are going to generate stress in the baby. And we're going to find too that baby's going to experience hunger and thirst for the very first time. So it is a really, to a degree, an unpleasant change for a baby to go from snuggly womb to a very different world. One of the best ways that we can support our babies through this is through Skintoskin. So that's when we have baby lifted onto our tummy, whether it's that we've had a C-section or a vaginal delivery, and baby's lifted up onto us, and we all do the same pattern of instinctive interaction with our baby. So we count that we've definitely got all of our fingers and all of our toes, and we begin those first eye-gazing contacts with our baby, and that's one of the things that helps to release oxytocin in a baby. So as well as doing this, we're protecting their brain at that moment because we are stabilising their heart rate and their breathing, so that's making sure that baby's getting plenty of oxytocin, plenty of oxygen as well to their brain, and we're just and cutting baby through the process. And then this is something that helps babies long term in terms of brain development, but what often happens during these first early is baby starts rooting around and searching for the breast, and we start to establish that relationship where breast becomes a place for baby to feel safe and secure throughout their breastfeeding journey. It's a place where they can have their needs met when they're hungry. It's a place to have their needs met if they're cold or lonely. So it's a really lovely way to be supporting your baby's development and fulfilling things and smoothing the transition from womb to world for them. Now, I can see here that my lovely colleagues have posted the UNICEF Baby Friendly Lead, and you can also find out more about generally supporting your baby's growth and development from the pages of your child health record as well. So that's your baby's red book. So that you're given these enable you to have a good look through and make sure that you're beginning to put in place the things that can help to support development. So how does breastfeeding help to influence brain growth? So we hear a lot about breastfeeding from a nutritional perspective. So we know that we are starting baby off with lots of different ingredients that are going to support brain growth. So we've got different fatty acids that support neural development, and we also have different sugars that support baby's microbiome in their gut. And one of the really cool things about gut bacteria when we're thinking about brain development is that the gut bacteria can release chemicals and communicate with our brain, and that can change things like stress hormone levels in our brain and also influence our brain development and our mental health long term. So setting up good bacteria in our tummy through breastfeeding and through Skintoskin when we're first born, that helps us to have good brain development and good well-being, mental well-being throughout our lives. So every little bit of breast milk and changing this microbiome that we do early on has a really big impact. Breastfeeding also helps to meet the needs for babies to be close, and I'm sure that any of us here that have had new babies or even older babies, we know that they like to check in really frequently with us and have a bit of milk. So it's normal for newborn babies to have at least 8 to 12 feeds in 24 hours. And that's lots of opportunity, not just for them to have milk, but to have physical contact. And of course, when we're feeding our babies, we don't generally tend to just latch them on and there we go. There tends to be lots of communication. It could be that we're chatting with our baby and guiding them through as they're latching. It could then be that once they're latched, we're stroking them. Again, we often massage their palms because this encourages a good feeding rhythm. And when we're doing that, we're teaching baby that there's a beginning and there's an end to a limb. So we're supporting nice, healthy connections between their brain and their body. And of course, we do things like stroke their feet to encourage them to carry on feeding. And again, we're stimulating different parts of their body at the same time, and we're fulfilling that need for closeness and for warmth and for touch. Often babies cry a lot when we set them down and when we finish a feed in the early days, and people are often worried about picking baby back up and putting them to the breast. Sometimes they think they can't be hungry again, or perhaps they're worried about developing a relationship with their baby where their baby becomes clingy is often a word used, or some people worry about making a rod for their own back when they're responding frequently to these babies' needs. But actually, if we're responding quickly, we're reducing those stress hormones. Babies are less likely to be crying frequently, which makes our lives as mums and dads easier. And also, it soothes the baby and makes them feel loved and secure. So, although breastfeeding and the absence of milk might not always be the initial problem, so it might not be that baby's hungry, feeding them at the breast is often going to be a way to soothe that crying and to settle them back down again, because it gives them an opportunity to check in with us. And that's a really lovely way of boosting their oxytocin and giving them an opportunity for good brain growth. Now, there are lots of reasons that babies cry to be fed. One of them is that how we've evolved as a species is that we give birth to relatively immature babies with immature brain development and systems, and our babies can't get up and run and follow us like a baby deer, and they need us to keep them warm because they're naked and they don't have brilliant regulation of their body temperature when they're tiny. So part of keeping babies safe and their brain development, they've evolved to keep close to us at all times. And for a new baby, anywhere really in that first year of life, the idea of separating from a parent quite often feels life-threatening to them. They don't know that when they're away from you, they're not going to get carried off and eaten by something. And they also don't know that you're not going to get carried off and eaten by something, and they're going to be left alone permanently. So they have a really strong drive to reconnect with you. And it is never the wrong thing to pick a baby up whose only desire is to be snuggled against you. So if your baby is crying, if they're doing feeding cues, having been fed, always just pick your baby up, offer them the breast, rock them and shush them, and just help them to feel loved and secure. It tends to be those ones where I used to call my babies Velcro babies because they liked to be close all the time. and it's often those Velcro babies who grow up to be the babies who you go to a toddler group, and because you've put all this time in the beginning, helping them to feel loved and secure, they're ready to go and explore the world confidently when they're toddlers. So we've helped to build a strong, inquisitive brain that is safe to explore the world because they're confident they've got a safe space to return to at the end of it. Thank you to my team who are continuing to post links below. This is really helpful. So, as well as breastfeeding, there are other ways that we can stimulate our baby's growth and development as we go along, and breastfeeding is a nice way to have that as the central point of connecting and reassuring and comforting your baby. But then there are other things that we can add to this. So some babies have long periods of crying and intense needs to be close despite lots of feeding, and for these babies things like baby wearing can really come into its own and support babies to feel nice and safe and close. And at the same time, when babies are worn by a mum or dad, so by this I'm talking about wearing your baby in a sling or a carrier, they're able to have a really good look around at the world, or if they need the closeness they can turn in and snuggle themselves right into somebody. It enables them to have that tight hug they had in the womb, and that helps to lower their stress hormones and promote more oxytocin and brain development. And also they're experiencing things at a more adult level. So instead of being down in a bouncer or laid back in a pram and just kind of looking at a ceiling, they're having that ability to interact with adults at a face-to-face level, to have a bit more eye contact and eye gazing, which is brilliant for brain development. And they're also able to feel secure and enjoy that motion of being on a body again as well. Other ways that we can stimulate babies' brain development are through lots of loving touch, and for some people that's just lots of stroking and patting and rubbing, and all of these things help to lower those stress hormones. Some people like to do something more structured, like baby massage, and it's often a nice way to build into helping baby to relax through the day. So it might be that baby has a bath and then followed by massage, and again back to the breast, ready to lower those stress hormones, ready for a good sleep. Sleep's really important when we're thinking about brain development, because babies take in all this data during the day and all this new input from all the experiences that they have. And we have to bear in mind too that the level of perception of the world around them that babies have grows every day, because eyesight becomes clearer, hearing becomes more accurate, all of those sorts of things. So our baby's always got lots of new data to process. And when babies are overwhelmed and need to process lots of data, by comforting them at the breast, especially if it helps them to then settle down and have a sleep, we're supporting them to really work out what they've been exposed to during the day and to process it. And that's when we put into place the opportunities for them to have time to digest what they've been taking on board and to start learning. And lots of mums come to us and they talk about their babies crying out in their sleep, or appearing to have nightmares or dreams, or perhaps even giggling in their sleep, which is very cute. And this is where the brain is rapidly developing and taking on board and processing all of this information. So supporting your baby to sleep at the breast can be a really lovely way to induce sleep if your baby's feeling a bit overwhelmed. And then we've also got encouraging good movement. So when babies are really small, we often talk about tummy time and how that influences brain development. And for a new baby, tummy time might actually be best on a mummy's chest, doing some laid-back breastfeeding, or perhaps passed over to a partner so that baby can be reaching up, doing some eye gazing and bonding with other people as well, but really focusing on giving baby that opportunity to lift their head to do eye gazing and building the connections between their neck and their brain and the rest of their body, and building up muscles and basically nerves. And this is going to support baby's brain development immensely. And then as we move on, we do have in the Red Books a page about Born to Move, which is the programme encouraging good, positive movement and interaction with the world for babies. And we actually have a really lovely app as well, which you can download onto your phone, and that gives you age-appropriate things that you can try to encourage good brain development for your baby, as well as physical development. Hi, Karen. So then moving forwards, doing things like encouraging your baby to have tummy time on your body, and then later on when your baby's crawling, giving them lots of safe space to move around in. This is really good as well. As our babies develop and their personalities become more clear, often we do find that some babies are more confident earlier on and able to sustain a bit more distance or longer periods between feeds, and other babies really do need to be kept close and have as much time at the breast as possible. And both of these things are completely normal and should be welcomed and supported. Breastfeeding is an important part of your baby's development for at least the first 2 years of life. So it is okay if you've got an older baby or a toddler who, although they're exploring the world in different ways, so we're doing lots of visual stimulation and lots of crawling and perhaps toddlering as well, it's okay for them to then want to keep frequently coming back and snacking at the breast. And one of the ways that breastfeeding supports development a bit later on is that if babies are a bit unsure of the world, they've got the opportunity to ask for milk, touch base with mum, lower the stress hormones, have another nice burst of oxytocin, and ready themselves again to be open to learning and taking on new information. As toddlers grow, it's really important that they're able to have time at the breast still. Human milk changes on a hourly basis, but certainly as babies grow over time, the ingredients in human milk changes to meet that specific baby's needs. So we're going to have more and more ingredients that are going to be boosting your baby's brain development as they grow. And it's really important that we don't prevent babies who are needing to spend more time at the breast from doing so. So if you're finding that we've moved past this really early stage with your baby and your older baby or your toddler, especially perhaps during this strange time when perhaps nursery has been put on hold, and you're finding yourself indoors more with your baby, and you're starting to wonder why they're wanting to feed more and more, it's a really normal part of them trying to lower everybody's stress hormones. Babies will often pick up on strange times. Perhaps you and your partner have returned home and are now working from home as opposed to going out to work, and your older baby or toddler might be used to nursery, and all of a sudden everybody's at home indoors trying to juggle everything all together. So babies often pick up on a bit of anxiety or stress or unusual circumstances, and to just check in and say, "Oh, hey mum, I'm okay, are you okay?" They'll often ask to be at the breast more. So don't worry about this. This is supporting their brain development, but also supporting growing their soul and enabling them to feel safe, and also for you to feel safer. This is a time for you to really indulge, if you're at home with your babies, really indulge in that ability to feed your baby as often as they want and to have more skin to skin, not just for the oxytocin for their own brain growth and development, but also for you too, because this is going to help to lower some of those stress hormones that you might be feeling with all the crazy changes we've had going on around us. and give you a little boost where we can't hug our own mums and our friends and family in a way that we might like to. So use this opportunity to use the breastfeeding relationship to lower your own stress hormones too, and just feel a bit of extra love. If you do have any other questions from today, or if you would like an opportunity to talk about breastfeeding challenges, especially if at the moment breastfeeding isn't all lovely and squishy and oxytocin inducing for you because you're finding it stressful or challenging, painful, or any other things that can crop up, please don't hesitate to contact us. You can always comment below and we'll get in contact with you, or you can drop a message to the Beside You page, or you can go online to our website and find out how to contact your local breastfeeding support directly. I hope you've enjoyed our session today. I'm going to be back in a couple of weeks to talk about other breastfeeding issues. I think I'm going to be talking about older babies and some of the challenges that can crop up after those early weeks. So if you've got any questions about them, you can find the event on our page anyway, and start posting your questions, and then I'll be here to give you some more information and support then. But for now, I'm going to leave you guys and get back to answering mum's calls and doing video consultations to support the families across Kent. It's been lovely being here with you, and I hope you have a lovely day. Bye bye.